G'day up, Rayvers. The name's Ruttle, Ray Ruttle, and I'm here at the Contra-Dam on the Verzasca River in Switzerland, the famous location where Brosnan introduced his son to the world as James Bond with a death-defying stunt as he bungee jumped off this 720-foot dam. So actually probably didn't, did it? Probably weren't him, it was probably a stuntman, weren't it? I bet Brosnan ain't ever even been in, has he? No. Now, when Roger finally realised it was time to give it up in the 80s, the Bond producers had got Pierce Brosnan lined up, but there was some contractual dispute because they were contracted to do this teleprogram at Remington Steel, and the producers of that said, no, you're not going. So anyway, they couldn't do it. But you can see it gave him a good grounding for being suave and sophisticated, like Bond.
Pierce Brosnan is Taffin.
And also, he did a film called Taffin in the 80s, which felt a little bit like a sort of cross between an episode of Boone and Father Ted.
The town turns desperately to the one man who can help.
We need everyone we can get on our side.
I can't change the world that we live in.
And it gave him an opportunity to be tough and uncompromising.
Brosnan is riveting as the hired enforcer, a complex character who by equal turns is both good and evil.
Now, are my ears playing tricks on me? Or did the music on that trailer sound like it were off Treasure Hunt? I knew it sounded familiar. Yeah, Treasure Hunt. That programme that mainly consisted of Annika Rice running around countryside wearing garish 1980s jumpsuits. And it were obviously a dream job for the cameraman and all, weren't it? Chasing Annika around every week and zooming in on her arse. Ooh. And she'd go running around searching for these pink clues.
Oh, here's it! Have you got it? Yes!
And some contestants in the studio would try and solve them to win a prize or some such. And I didn't have a Scooby what the clues meant. Couldn't understand them at all. And I didn't know what were going on. And Denise loved it. And I just enjoyed looking at the view. No, I meant the countryside, love. No, I didn't mean I was looking at, Here's a fun fact for you, Bond fans. Annika Rice actually got offered the part of a Bond girl and turned it down.
I know Cubby Broccoli called me in for the audition.
Yeah.
This was when I was in my 20s. So when he said the word Bond girl, I just went, I really don't want to be a Bond girl. I don't want to be there to have sex with James Bond. Sorry.
Yeah, she weren't interested in getting her hands on Bond's pink clue, was she? Oh, yeah. Sorry, love. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yeah, Brozzer in Taffin. Yeah, you can't mention Taffin without showing this.
What goes on in this town is none of your business.
As long as I'm living here, it is.
Then maybe you shouldn't be living here!
Yes, that is actually real. Now, there were more contractual disputes in the 90s, and they couldn't make a Bond film for ages for some reason. And Dalton got bored of hanging about, so he jacked it in. But by this point, Remington Steel had finished, so the producers were able to finally get the man. And Brozzer debuted as Bond in 1995's GoldenEye. And who could forget that death-defying opening stunt that he did, that really set the tone for his tenure as Bond. No, I'm not talking about the bungee jumping one. I'm talking about this sodding ridiculous thing here, where he ends up flying after this plane, and he gets in the side. That is absolutely ludicrous. I mean, it defies physics, that does. Now, it was as if he'd been ready to play Bond for ages, because he seemed to settle into role almost immediately. He looked very comfortable in the chucks and confident saying the catchphrases.
Vodka martini, shaken, not stirred.
And coming up with the double entendres like Roger did.
How do you take it?
Straight up.
I mean, look, she's suggestively fiddling around with that cigar like it's his todger. And he can barely contain his sanity. He's dying to make a gag. He also did some innovative action set pieces early on in his Bond career, like driving around in this tank and smashing this town to pieces. Or that motorbike chase where he were handcuffed to the Chinese agent. And he even did a car chase when he weren't even in the car. You gotta say that was pretty innovative. That's a bit bloody irresponsible at the end there though, isn't it? You can wave goodbye to that deposit, mate. But by the end of it, things were going daft like they did with Roger. I mean, he'd got this invisible car which was stupid.
Oh, very good.
I beg to differ, Pace. I thought it was shit. And there's this bit where he's paragliding across these icebergs, and it looks bloody awful. That's supposed to be cutting edge CGI, but it's shite. That's no better than Roger superimposed when he's supposed to be skiing. But credit where credit's due, Brozzer did introduce a new element to the Bond franchise: dynamic running. In previous movies, Bond had never run anywhere near as much as this. Connery, for example, he's too cool to run. You couldn't really describe it as running. He just sort of stumbles because he's too cool to break into a proper run. And as for Roger, well, I think he was too busy shagging to do any running. Now, whilst Brozzer introduced the dynamic running, I'm not convinced that he perfected it. Because I know a little bit about running, having competed in the Nottinghamshire School's athletics tournaments when I was a lad. Yeah, look at that, in my prime. Now, if we have a look at Brozzer's technique here, you can see he looks very tense around the shoulders and around the jaw, which could hinder the fluency of his arm drive and consequently reduce his leg speed. Whereas if we look at Daniel Craig on the right hand side of the screen, you can see he looks a lot more relaxed, doesn't he, in the shoulders? Looks a lot more natural. Now, I'd like to compare a couple of scenes from Die Another Day to illustrate how Brozzer's Bond reacts in certain situations compared to Connery's Bond in the same scenario. Now, first up, he's captured at the end of the pre-credit sequence in Die Another Day, and he's imprisoned for 14 months, and he grows this big long beard here, as you can see. Now, he doesn't escape. He gets released in a prisoner exchange. Now, compare that with Connery, who'd be out of there in 5 minutes. And he'd just use his cunning and his ingenuity to fox the prison guard. And then crash bang wallop, he's escaped. This second example shows Brozzer in a challenge with the baddie, and he loses the first couple of points of this challenge, and that ain't uncommon. You often saw that with Connery, but then it's how he responds when the stakes are raised. And what then happens is this sword fight, where Brozzer is unable to assert his dominance in the same way that Connery would have done. And he stood at the end of the fight, just panting and sweating, like any out-of-shape middle-aged bloke.
60%. 65%.
Now, in this example with Connery, where he loses this computer game that's been narrated by Cylon from Battlestar Galactica, notice that when the stakes are raised, he cranks it up a notch, doesn't he?
Can we play one more game for the rest of the world?
Yeah, he's been hustling the baddie, and you see it's a great example of his supreme confidence in his own level of expertise.
Do you lose as gracefully as you win?
I wouldn't know. I've never lost.
Now, at times during this review, I feel like I've been talking about some of the other Bonds more than I've been talking about Brozzer. And I think that's a little bit symptomatic of the problem. Because for me, Brozzer, he was never really his own man. At times it felt like he was trying to be a bit too much like Connery or too much like Roger. And it's an issue that Brozzer Hussein has raised in an interview he did with the Telegraph a few years back. I felt I were caught in a time warp between Roger and Sean. It was a very hard one. It were a very hard one to grasp the meaning of for me. The violence was never real. The brute force of the man was never palpable. It was quite tame, and the characterisation didn't have a follow-through of reality. It was surface, but then that might have had to do with my own insecurities in playing him as well. I have no desire to watch myself as James Bond, because it's just never good enough. It's a horrible feeling. And I think that's a shame, because I do really like Brozzer. Now, when I've seen him interviewed, he comes across as a good bloke. And his Bond films did have some good bits in them. Yeah, there's a lot to enjoy in the Brozzer Bond films. Check out this fantastic bit of non-verbal acting here, for example, where he just conveys his emotions through the subtlety of his facial expressions. I mean, De Niro would have been proud of that. So, Brozzer, yeah, never quite reached the heights of Connery or Roger, and not even Dalton for me, I'm afraid. But still a lot to enjoy in his Bond films, so don't write them off. You know, if they pop up on ITV4, give them a watch. And also, make sure you watch the rest of my reviews of the other Bonds. And I will see you next time. Okeydoo! Right, how the do I get down from here?